Welcome to the Go Slow to Go Fast Lifestyle Podcast. I'm your host, Kendra Chapman, and today you're going to be listening in on a conversation with me and one of my longtime friends, Joanna Moss, who has been an educator like me. She's been in and out of the classroom, a principal. We were both in grad school together. That's how we met to become administrators. And we've been through this journey together as administrators. And now we come together, we sit down to discuss all things in our present, not in administration anymore. And Joanna has been working for Arthur C. Brooks, who is an American author and a Harvard graduate school professor. She has recently shifted back into the classroom. And so she talks about that. She talks about her experience working with Arthur Brooks. And because he studies happiness at Harvard, we thought we would discuss that a little bit. So stay for the whole discussion to find out what she's going to be doing next with the research around happiness and supporting schools and school leaders. So with that, I also want to just let you all know I'm going to be traveling to see family over the next week. So this is going to be the first episode of season 2, and it will be coming out on New Year's Day. So happy New Year. If you celebrate any of the holidays, I hope you had, or if you just spend it with family and have loads of time off, I hope that you enjoy the time, that you're able to rest, and that you're thinking about what you want 2026 to bring. And we don't have to talk about goals, but that is something that I tend to do. I tend to spend some time thinking about my goals for the next quarter at least, because it's always good to go back and think, okay, for every 3 months, am I meeting my goals? What I set out to do, have I accomplished that? And if not, what can I do to make sure that I do? Or if it no longer is something that I want to accomplish, what are my new goals? So I'm always revisiting those goals anyway, not just at the beginning of the new year. It's something that I do at least 4 times a year just to kind of figure out, what's next. So cheers to you and yours. And I hope that you had a restful time and that you're having a peaceful afternoon as you listen to this, or a peaceful evening, or wherever you are in the world, driving, walking, whatever you're doing while you're listening to this podcast. Thank you for being here, and I hope you come back. Take care. Cheers, everybody. Happy New Year. Be well. I just want to say thank you, Joanna, for coming and sitting down with me. We're old friends, not in the sense of that we're old, although we are feeling it someday.
You're not old.
We're not old, but we have been friends for a long time. I was thinking about it the other day. We've been friends since, I guess we met in grad school, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
when the world was stars and rainbows and butterflies.
I know, and we knew what we wanted to do, or we thought we did.
Yeah.
What we wanted to do in life, right? And neither of us is doing that anymore. So it's just kind of interesting what we went to school for.
I spiral back and forth around those things. So I've recently come back to education after a 10-year hiatus.
Yeah.
So that'll be a fun story to share.
That's right.
But yeah, no, I definitely did not see myself here at this age. Not personally, not professionally. So it is interesting, So for your listeners, Kendra and I went to graduate school together at the University of Virginia, and we were both interested in school administration. We were working for K-12 school systems. She was in testing and equity and things like that, right, through the testing office. And I was a classroom teacher at the time, and we both wanted to be school principals. And we both did that.
We did.
And now we're both not doing that.
We are.
Yeah, we are both not doing that. Yeah, it's very interesting. It's funny. I went to UVA a few weeks ago I went down to Charlottesville with some girlfriends just for a girls' weekend. And I walked around that campus for the first time ever because we went to a satellite campus up in Northern Virginia. I had never actually been to the University of Virginia. So I walked around and took photos and made a joke that it was like senior portraits. But it's a beautiful campus.
It is. It is pretty campus. You're right.
Yeah.
So
things have changed.
There. They have changed.
Things have changed so much. So, I thought I knew what I wanted to do. I still think I do. And I've learned a lot. So I'll share my recent adventures. I always wanted to be important. I have, everyone has an idol. that they serve, whether it's, power or money or pleasure. People get addicted to things because they just can't get off that, gambling or drinking or whatever the thing is, right? The pleasure
Mhm.
thing. My idol is fame, and
Mm,
not in the celebrity sense, but, just wanting to be prestigious or
mhm.
important.
Yeah.
And in education, the way you become important is you become a school leader. You're an administrator, you're the top dog in the building, and you mentor teachers and you walk the halls, and it's like yours. It's your school, it's your legacy. And I wanted that so badly. And I think I was and still am a really good teacher. I'm a really good teacher, I think. I connect with kids. I think a lot of teachers struggle with that rapport, with behavior management, or, with understanding the content and being able to explain things. I think I'm good at those things, but I just couldn't stand being in the classroom. I wanted to be better and more and bigger. And so I went to graduate school and got my degree in administration and became a school principal. And I loved it. It was great until I decided to start a family, and then you're married to the school. You're there from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. every day. And, it just wasn't conducive to being a mom of infants and toddlers. And so I took a step back and went on this crazy spiral journey, still in education, but just doing different things, fundraising or event planning, data, parent engagement, lobbying. I flitted around the charter school scene, around school choice and things like that, and learned so much about the education system across the country. And I loved all of the work I did. But as I became more important and had these more prestigious jobs, I was traveling more. I was away from home more. I was away from my kids more. And so, as much as I was loving what I did, I was losing a part of my life that was really important. And when my oldest child started kindergarten, I thought, I just can't do this anymore. I've got to be home. I've got these kids, I've got kids that need me. I want to go to school for the little play or the 100th day of school celebration. I want to be home to do homework and do all the things. And so I went back to the classroom, and it didn't last but a year that I was back in the classroom because again, I felt that pull to, like, oh, I could do more. I want to be a leader again. And it was hard. That was 15 years ago, 14. My daughter's 14 now. She's in high school. I still all this time struggle with that lust for importance.
Mhm.
When she was young, I ended up, leaving school again, leaving education again, and went into real estate, which was great for a young mom. My schedule was super flexible. I could volunteer at the school and still do what I was really good at, what I was passionate about. But then I was able to be really flexible and make lots of money and, have my face on signs. So I was able to feed both of the beasts, I guess, my passion for education and then also this desire to be important. And then the pandemic hit and real estate went haywire. And so, of course, I made tons of money and it was great. And then things tanked again. And I loved what I was doing because it allowed me to be with my family more. But I just didn't love what I was doing. The real estate is fun for people who are in sales, but I'm not a salesman. That's not my thing. And I just didn't feel passionate about it. And so when the kids went back to school and they got a little older and they're approaching middle school, they don't want me at school anymore, then real estate no longer gave me the things I needed for my family because then I was working nights and weekends and holidays and I couldn't spend time with my kids at school because they're older and, the middle schools don't need room moms. So I felt this weird displacement again. So I reached out to a good friend of mine that I stayed in touch with, that I worked with for years. And I said, if you know of any kind of contract work or anything in education, I'm looking to get back in the game. And she
Mhm.
said, you've got to come meet this guy and you got to see what we're doing. And she introduced me to Arthur Brooks. He's a Harvard professor and best-selling author, and he writes about happiness. And he teaches a graduate class at Harvard called Leadership and Happiness. And what's really interesting about his work is that it's not the warm, fuzzy happiness stuff. It's based in neuroscience and the way the chemicals in your brain react when you experience happiness and the way you manage your emotions and can control things through brain research. And so I thought, okay, well, this is actually pretty cool. And I ended up working for Arthur for 3 years doing curriculum development, trainings, workshops, traveled all over the country with him, teaching about happiness and supporting his work. He actually has a new book coming out next April around finding meaning in your life and how we all as a society have lost that direction. We don't
Mhm.
have that purpose or meaning. And interesting because for the past few years, once again, I was speaking in front of audiences. I had that, oh, I'm on stage, I'm performing, I feel important and prestigious. And what's funny is in teaching about happiness, I learned what I needed to do to become happier.
Mm.
Um, so it was an interesting adventure.
Mm.
You want me to keep going? I keep going.
Well, and you say you've kind of walked us through your thought process since grad school, since when we met. And I would say, there's a couple of things that I thought of when you were speaking. Finding a way to get your voice out there could be a way to be relevant or have some sort of power. But I think it really goes back to what you just said. I think it's about your purpose and in leadership, whatever that looks like, whether it be in the home, in the classroom, in the world. I think you just have sought your purpose in the way that you want to serve. You've said it pretty honestly that you like having that ability to get yourself out there but I think it's because you're a learner, you're a lifelong learner, having known you. So if you're bored, then you want to have a new adventure where you can learn new things.
Yeah, I think you obviously you know me very well, and I definitely like learning and growing. I consider myself a bit of a nomad, so I've never been one to feel stable or secure in a certain spot. I always am looking for what's next or, how to grow or how to change or how to build something bigger. And it was interesting working for Arthur. So he has a definition for happiness, and people so often confuse happiness with a feeling. So if I ask you, what is happiness, you may say, oh, it's the feeling I get when I'm with the people I love, my family, or it's the feeling I get when I'm doing something that I feel passionate about. But the confusing part of that is that happiness is not a feeling.
Mm.
Feelings are evidence of happiness. And so we teach people how to understand the macronutrients of what happiness is and how to work toward those things. And when you boil all of it down, the four habits of the happiest people are, it's these four things that they invest in. It's faith, right? Which may be a religious faith, or it may just be, a transcendent idea of the world around you. But the fact that you make yourself small and the world is bigger and you're a piece of it. And what can you give to that? Right. And that's the purpose comes in there.
Mhm.
And so faith, family, true family connection, which is harder now than ever because our world has become so polarized. And then friendships that are true, deep friendships, not just transactional,
Right.
which again, as a school leader or as any leader, right, a CEO or when you're at the top, it's lonely. It's lonely at the top. You don't have your buds like you used to when you were one of the, one of the subordinates. So having friendships that, truly where you can connect and you can be yourself and you can feel loved and express love. And then the fourth thing is work that serves other people,
Mhm.
not just to collect a paycheck, not just to see your name in lights, which is obviously a flaw of mine that I'm always wanting to be the center of attention, but truly earning your success by serving other people. And so those four habits that you invest in, faith, family, friendships, and meaningful work that serves other people, I started to learn those things working with Arthur, reading more, building these trainings and workshops around his books and his teaching and hearing him. I traveled with this man to, a million hotel ballrooms across the country and heard him teach this over and over and over. And what's so interesting about hearing him speak is even though it's the same talk
Mhm.
and I've heard the same thing so many times, each time there was something a little different.
Mm.
He knows his audience and he speaks very well and he's able to connect in a different way each and every time. So I would learn something new every time I heard him talk. And I'd go back home and think, well, gosh, I have really good friends like Kendra, who I haven't talked to in 2 years.
Yeah.
I need to reconnect with my friends who mean more to me and, my family. I've got two teenagers now who teenage girls. Look, God bless anybody that's got teenage daughters and I'm a single mom now. I went through divorce a few years ago and parenting teenage daughters has got to be one of the most challenging things on the planet. And I'm thinking, here I am again in this prestigious job, traveling all over the country, doing all these great things. And every time I leave, my girls are left here without their mom. And
Mhm.
so I need to focus on my friends and focus on my family. And I need to get in touch with my faith. And, it's funny, I went to Catholic schools as a kid. I've always grown up in a Christian home, but I never actually practiced Christianity.
Mhm.
And this
Mhm.
is the first year, I'm almost 50 years old. This is the first year in my life I decided to read the Bible. I've
Mm.
never read the Bible before. That's another challenge. Getting through that book is challenging, but I'm doing it.
Yes.
And so I'm getting in touch with my faith and what my gifts are, my spiritual gifts that God gave me and how I can share those and then use that in my work and serve. And so the interesting thing and everybody goes through ups and downs and I think job loss is something that lots of people have faced at one time or another, but it's something that hit me pretty hard in the spring and I realized working with Arthur that, it was a tiny team and growing in different ways. And the gifts that I had just were no longer valuable there. And
Mm.
so I ended up parting with him and his company on good terms. I mean, it was, and I'm still really good friends with the CEO there. And I love the work that Arthur does so much that I'll tell you about my next adventure. But I
Mhm.
ended up leaving and I'm back in the classroom for the first time in over 10 years. I'm teaching elementary school again, which I never in a million years thought I'd be back in the classroom. And it's been fun and it's been challenging and I love these kids. But deep down, the hard part for me is I'm just a teacher.
Mm.
And, I went from being, you know, prestigious and, ooh, I've got this cool job and I travel all over the country and I do all these cool things and I make a lot of money. And now I'm back in the classroom and you know, there was a significant pay cut and that level of prestige is not there anymore. And that's been a real wake up call for me because I know what I worship. I know what my idol is, that I want to be in the starlight. I want to be important and famous and prestigious. And it's been kind of it's been a humbling experience. I'll say it that way. It has been a
Mm.
humbling experience listening to where I think God wants me to be and where I am passionate about education, but that's where my gifts are. I think my gifts are teaching. And so getting back in tune with that, and I've found a different type of happiness by stepping back and humbling myself a little bit. And I think that's what your podcast is about is slowing down and, thinking about the things that are most important in your life and how it's so easy to get wrapped up in things that you think you want. And really, if you can just slow down a little bit, you end up with so much more.
Mhm.
And so it's been an interesting journey for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And realizing you have so much to be thankful and grateful for in that slowing down is very transparent. It's very vulnerable of you to say that, you do miss the previous life and
Yeah.
experiences. But I think both can be true. Sounds like you're doing some new work where you maybe get to do a little bit of that and also teach and be a mom. So I'm interested to hear more about your next
Yeah.
journey and how that's going to unfold.
Yeah, so it's interesting. So, I'm teaching fifth grade now full time. I love it. I work with an amazing group of teachers. My team, I think that makes all the difference when you're, in any job, not just teaching,
Sure.
but in any job, it's, the people you work with really make it or break it for you. And coming back to the classroom as a seasoned teacher, but just having been off the bike for over 10 years, the way that technology has changed and expectations have changed. And this group of students that I'm teaching this year were the kids who went to kindergarten online. First, they were the first pandemic school age kids. And so it's
Right.
so different. And I can say the team I work with, my principal, the other teachers, on my team, and God, I mean, it just makes all the difference. It's a really great group of people that I work with, and I'm enjoying it. And the students are fun and they keep me alive and they keep me feeling young. And so I really enjoy what I'm doing.
Mhm.
But I did miss that, being on stage, I guess.
Yeah.
And through my work with Arthur, I was introduced to a woman, Karen Guggenheim, and she's the president and founder of a Miami-based organization called the World Happiness Summit. And she went through some significant sadness in her life and learned how to overcome it. And she ended up creating this company around happiness. And her work in Arthur's aligns very well because she teaches about the importance of relationships and communication and things that our tech savvy society has forgotten about. And she does these annual happiness summits. I went to one this past spring in Miami, but she's done them overseas as well. So it's a worldwide organization and she brings together the best minds in this happiness space, and what they focus on, what they talk about, and why it's important to reconnect and build those relationships and work toward happiness. When I was working for Arthur, we had a really interesting opportunity to do a pilot program with the Miami-Dade County public school system, which, and you're familiar, Miami-Dade County is one of the largest school districts in the country and one of the most challenged just because of, everything that all of our schools are facing, funding and, demographics and, just family values and all the things that our school systems and our students are all struggling with across the country. But Miami-Dade County feels it deeper, I think, because it's such a big county with so many challenges. And since the World Happiness Summit is a Miami based company, Karen had these really great connections with the superintendent and the folks in the school district. And she ended up creating a pilot program to train the school leaders, the K 12 principals around happiness and leadership, and hooked up with Arthur. And they said, who better to do this than Joanna because you've been in K 12 education and you know the space. And so I helped to create this pilot program. And we've gone down there. We've now done 3 cohorts of principal training in Miami, and we've trained 150 school principals around happiness and well being, which,
Mhm.
as you know, as a school leader, you are bombarded
Yeah, you are.
constantly with mandates and federal and state mandates and test scores and community issues and building maintenance things and HR and budget cuts. And
Mhm.
it's a lonely job being at the top. And so I think a lot of our school leaders forget to take care of themselves.
Mhm.
And we built this experience. It's a professional development experience for these school principals where for a day you get to come and just feel good about things.
Mhm.
And you're reminded why you got into this and what your purpose is and how to manage your emotions and how to build teams on your teaching, like right on your faculty, how to build teams that where the emotional makeup complements one another and it builds stronger, more effective teams. Because as we know, when your employees are happier, when your teachers are happier, you have better performance, you have higher teacher retention, you have happier people that make happier classrooms where there are happier children who then ultimately learn better because the environment is conducive to that safe space. I've now gone down to Miami a few times and done these trainings, and I love what they're doing. And I think it's really important. And so it's exciting for me to be, back in the classroom and teaching and doing something that I love, but then also I have these quick little, 1 or 2 day commitments,
Mhm.
which is totally doable, where I can go and I can teach other people about happiness and well being. And I feel like I'm making a difference, not just for my own family, but for, hundreds of schools in Miami. And I'm hoping that it grows. I think it's going to go really well. And I think we could do this in other places. And so I'm excited about that work with it's World Happiness Summit. They call it WAHASU for short. But so I'm really excited about that work with WAHASU. And I think it's important. And so even though I'm no longer on Arthur's team, using his teaching, and there are so many others. I mean, there are dozens of instructors and authors that write around the science of happiness, but really trying to make it a daily practice. It's just like fitness or nutrition or anything else. You have to work at being happy and you have to make it part of your daily routine or it just, you lose it.
Hmm. Yeah. We all know that we're not supposed to eat, overindulge in the sugar and, all the other things that we know are not good for you. But do we do it all the time? No.
No, I love sugar. I
Right?
need sugar right now.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
we know what's good for us. We just have to put in that consistent practice. So it's great that and I love that you're able to spread that information that is helpful to school leaders because that's one of the reasons why I started this podcast. As a school leader, I needed an outlet to bring back my purpose and my happiness because I knew I enjoyed teaching and I enjoyed speaking with others and learning with others. And this was one avenue of that kind of fostered that process. Also, yeah, we just, as school leaders, we just don't take enough time for ourselves because we're giving to everybody else. And as moms, as parents, and as a single mom, I just don't know how you're doing all of that and well. So kudos to you.
I don't know if I'm doing it well. I think we have, just like anybody, we've got good days and
Yeah.
bad days. You know, I've got two teenage daughters. Sometimes we're like the three best roommates ever to live together. And then other times we're at each other's throats. So I think
Hmm.
that's pretty normal.
Yeah.
I'm lucky. I mean, they've got a dad he's in the picture and he does his fair share, and he loves them. So they've got a good dad.
Hmm.
My parents live nearby and they help. And I've got a wonderful network of mom friends that I've met, through school functions and on the softball field. And, when they say it takes a village, they're not joking. It takes a village, and there are days where I scramble around from, my work to home to grab a kid, to bring them, to drop them off, to go to the concert, school concert, and then back, and then a game, and then a thing, and then pick up this one and that one. And at the end of the day, I sit down completely exhausted and I think, yeah, I'm super mom. I cranked it today and everything just worked. And, all the scrambling and I scheduled everything just perfectly. And we even had a hot meal. And
Mm,
then other days, I just sit in my car and I cry.
mm,
Like how, like I can't even take another step. And so I think it's important for every person, single moms and dads and married ones and
mhm,
parent people who don't have kids, like just each of us to constantly remind ourselves that the good and the bad is going to come, but if you make happiness a practice and if you focus on purpose in your life and the relationships that really matter, even the bad days, when they come, joy will come in the morning. Like
mhm,
there will always be an upswing.
mhm. Yeah,
What is it? What goes up must come down, but
yeah,
I feel like what goes down must come up.
yeah.
Like you won't stay down
Right,
forever.
right.
And so I think it's important to remind myself that too. And I do it through lots of things, obviously, journaling and, all the things. People say to do all the things. Oh, have a gratitude journal and focus on what you're thankful for. And it's hard to make that a practice as well, but it actually works. Just write down
It
the things you're
does.
thinking. And then when I am having a bad day, I can go back and read about the good ones. Or if I'm having a really good day, I'm like, wow, this was an amazing weekend. I go back a couple pages and I read something awful and I think, whoa, just 2 days ago I was at my wit's
Mhm,
end
mhm,
and here I am having a great day. And so I think it's important to remind ourselves that the ups and downs are gonna keep coming
mhm. Yep,
and you gotta stick with it. But yeah, thank
that's
you.
yeah.
Because yeah, parenting teenagers is good luck to you. You're gonna have three of them.
I know. I know. We're just starting to get into the boundaries of teen years and yeah, I'm glad I can afford to be a stay-at-home mom right now, but we'll see cuz like you, I'm going to get that itch to want to go and do other
Wanna do
things
things. Yeah.
to
Well, and
fill
you're
my
good at
cup.
things,
Yeah.
you've got so many gifts. And so I think it's hard when you've got all these gifts and talents that are bottled up and you want to use them and you want to do something cool, but you're not quite sure where or how or when.
Right.
So even when you feel content in your moment, there's some little voice in the back of your head that's always like, well, what's next? What's next? Where
Mhm.
are we going? What's the next thing? And sometimes it gets loud when
Yeah.
you're a stay-at-home mom. Yeah.
Well, and you're kind of a renaissance woman in your own right. I mean, you just kind of touched on some of the things you've done in the last 10 years. You were also like a star in a local play, right? You
Well,
were on the
that's the
stage?
see, that's the fame thing. I
Yeah.
love being on stage. I love being
Yeah.
the center of attention. So yeah, I did community theater.
Mhm.
I was a jazzercise instructor for a couple of years. I
Right?
love it. I
That's
love it. I
right.
love being on stage. It was just such a rush. But yeah, see, that's all
Yeah.
part of feeding that lust for importance, I think, which I it's like a daily struggle. I mean, I think it's literally it's like a recovering alcoholic. But I feel like for me it is a daily struggle and a reminder that, you know, I need to humble myself and focus on what my family needs right now and not what I think I want to do. And yeah, it's hard, but it's fun, you know, if you can balance it.
Yeah, and you're the center of the world to all those 5th graders that you're teaching right now. How many do you have in your class?
I teach two, so I have two groups. I have 22 in my homeroom, which is really low, which is
Mhm.
nice. And then I teach language arts and social studies.
Okay.
Yeah. And then we switch classes halfway through, and the other class
Okay.
has 23. So I've got 45 total.
Okay.
Beautiful little babies, and the area that I teach in is such a multicultural melting pot. I've
Mhm.
got every color and shape and size in my classroom, and they really are beautiful kids. I'm learning a lot about different cultures, and because they'll come in, they like to share their family traditions and what they little ceremonies that they take part in and things that they're learning. And so I'm learning a lot from these kids, which is kind of
Yeah.
a cool blessing because you always expect that you're going to come in and teach them things, but
Mhm.
they're teaching me things, and it's really, really a really cool little community that I've become a part of. So I'm happy. I'm happy now, until 2 days from now when I'm crying about my angsty teenager or something, but I'm happy in the moment.
Well, and I think that's part of being human. It's life. I think to experience the joy, we have to experience all the other parts of that up and down. So, yeah, it just makes it so much sweeter when we get to that point again and we can
Yeah. Well,
celebrate.
and so back to the science of that, I think there is a myth that happiness is the absence of unhappiness, that
Mm,
it is on some continuum, a spectrum
mhm,
where you're either happy or you're unhappy or you're somewhere in between. But the truth is that happiness and unhappiness are processed in two different parts of the brain. And so, rather than a spectrum, it's actually two dials. So you can be extremely happy, but also have a lot of unhappiness in your life
mhm,
and they go like this, right?
mhm.
Rather than a spectrum. And so I think obviously there are certain things, basic needs, right? Shelter, a
Yeah.
job, or healthy relationships, those types of things that are kind of the basics for like eliminating unhappiness. But just
Mhm,
because I get rid of the unhappiness in my life, right? I might get a job, I have, making money, I've got those things just because I've gotten rid of unhappiness doesn't mean I'm going to be happy. So, because they're on these two different dials, you have to work to eliminate the unhappy things, but you still have to work to be happy. And I think that's a common misconception because people think, oh, if I get that job or if I, whatever, land that promotion, or if I get the girl and we get married, I'll be happily ever after and I'll be so happy. And then they're not happy and they don't understand why. And it's because they're chasing these dreams of
feelings.
things, right? And they're not actually working toward getting happier. And so, yeah, and meaning is a big part of that. So Arthur says there are three macronutrients of happiness. Just like in a healthy meal, you have fats, carbohydrates, and protein, right? So happiness is a combination of enjoyment, satisfaction, and meaning. And enjoyment is pleasure, right? The pleasurable things in life, but you add people and memories. So, for example, right, if I'm sitting home alone watching Netflix, drinking a bottle of wine, the alcohol is not going to make me happy. But if I invite all my girlfriends over and we paint our nails and share a bottle of wine and we're laughing and making memories,
Mhm.
then that pleasure piece, right, the alcohol piece can bring enjoyment. And so it's about taking pleasure and not doing it alone. So anything that brings you pleasure or gives you those dopamine hits can become addictive if you're doing them alone. So look,
Mhm.
I'm gonna tell you my worst one is online shopping.
Yeah.
Amazon will be the death of me.
Yeah.
But if I go and pick up my mom and we grab lunch and go window shopping, it's a much more enjoyable experience than sitting on my couch putting stuff in my Amazon cart. So
Yes.
adding people and memories to the pleasure creates enjoyment, which is one macronutrient of happiness. The second is satisfaction, and that's just the sense of accomplishment you get after hard work.
Mhm.
And, we know that. I mean, we both went to graduate school. We're both mothers. It takes a lot of hard work and sacrifice, but you do get those rewards. And those rewards, if you're focusing on the right wants, right?
Mhm.
And the right goals for yourself, then when you achieve those goals, that can bring happiness. And then the third thing is meaning, having a
Mhm.
meaning or a purpose in your life and knowing what those gifts are and how you give them to people. So,
Mhm.
enjoyment, satisfaction, and meaning, those are the three macronutrients of true happiness.
I like it. And I like
Yeah.
how I think the meaning is the purpose piece is definitely the key, is getting, figuring out what that meaning is for you. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, but that's the hardest thing, right? Because we as a society, and I think we're teaching our young, our youth, that it's about how many likes you have or how many followers and friends you have on Instagram or TikTok. And it is empty. There's no connection. And so it's hard to find meaning when you have an absence of deep relationships or an absence of faith in your life. And like, you don't know, like, why were you created? Why are you here? What are your gifts?
Mhm.
What are you really good at? How can you go and use those gifts to help other people or serve other people? Then you understand what your meaning is, but I don't think we're teaching our kids how to do that.
No,
But yeah, there's definitely a meaning,
not enough.
an absence of meaning. But anyway, but yeah, so again, shameless
Yeah.
plug for Arthur's new book is about the search for meaning. And
Mhm.
so I'll be interested to read that one when it comes out
Yeah.
next spring.
And it's interesting, I know he's has a piece of the faith is involved in that four-pronged
Right,
happiness, that it isn't a feeling. It's based on faith, family, friendship, and then meaningful work
right.
that you're doing. So the faith, I'm also a raised Catholic, but I don't practice Catholicism anymore, but I'm definitely spiritual. So I find that interesting. I'll be interested to see where he goes with that in his next book, and kind of goes into the purpose driven life or purpose,
Hmm.
in your work and what you
Yeah,
do.
and I think you hit it on the head too, is that it doesn't have to be a religious practice. I think people hear the word faith and they automatically bristle because they think it's like, oh,
Yeah.
these, holy roller is gonna, tell me I need to go to church. And that's not it. I mean, if that is it for you, which I mean that's it for me, then
Hmm.
great. But it doesn't have to be that. You can be spiritual without
Hmm.
practicing a religion, and
Hmm.
it may just be meditation. It may be journaling, having quiet time to, reflect on the way you think and your reactions and the things that you've experienced.
Hmm.
You live in a beautiful area to experience nature, and a lot of people, faith is that for them, just
Hmm.
unplugging and, leaving the phone at home and just spending time in nature and just in awe of creation.
Hmm.
And it doesn't have to be a religious thing at all, but it's the idea that you are a part of something bigger
Hmm.
and you have an important part to play in that world.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everybody's here for a reason. So find your reason and go do it.
Right.
Good.
Right. Yeah. Get out there and make the world a better place. What I tell my
We need
boys.
it.
Oh, yeah, get off the couch and get outside. And if that means you're making, our space outside better, great. But yeah, I wish we could see more of that in schools. To be honest, that was something that I think was missing in some of the schools I was in, where I grew up having to volunteer a certain amount of hours each year to graduate with, as part of my diploma from high school.
I
But
love that.
don't know if a lot I know some schools do that. Now, I went to Catholic school, so it could
Yeah.
be something you see more in the private schools, but
Right.
we think that public schools could do that in some manner, if,
Yeah. I
giving
think
back service.
a lot of the clubs, like the honor societies and
Mhm.
those
Yeah, they're service
clubs
driven.
require things because, yeah,
Yeah.
they are service driven, but I don't know that you need it for your diploma. But gosh, I love that.
Mhm.
Ooh, maybe we should start a school.
Mhm.
let's start a new school that's all
Well,
service
you've got a
driven.
charter school background. Why not? We could.
I've got all the backgrounds.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
literally have all the background. I've done pretty much everything except, I don't know, I've not driven an ambulance yet
I
or
haven't driven a
performed
bus yet, but that's okay.
open heart surgery, but I think I've done just about everything else. I'm sure I could figure it out. We'll watch a YouTube video and figure out how to do it.
I know,
Um,
right?
yeah, but that's part of my nomadic spirit. I feel like I've done a little of everything, but I like it.
Mhm.
Education for all of its, I mean, this the education system for all of its flaws, I think has been a great landing place for me over the years because as I've spiraled through these different experiences,
Mhm.
I always find myself coming back to education.
Yeah.
And, and I think that is because that is my purpose. That's I was created to teach
Mhm.
and serve, whether I'm teaching adults or teaching
Mhm.
children. I don't know that there's a distinction between the two, but I know that I was born to teach
Mhm.
people things and to learn things. And so I keep spiraling back to education because it's an easy landing place for me because I just fit. I feel like I fit really comfortably in that role. Uh, and so I'm hoping that this time around I can, I can find happiness in my work and make a difference and see the fruits of my labor a little bit more because it is so very important. And yeah, our kids need something to grow up to.
I know, because being just a teacher, is definitely more than that, and I think it's where I'm happy that that's where you found happiness for now, but I know that you've got a lot left in you, and I can't wait to see what you choose to do next.
Well, hopefully I'll be here for a while because teenagers make me tired. And teaching is fun because I get to go and spend the day with these lovely little creatures who think I'm funny and cool. When I
Mhm.
come home, they just roll their eyes at me. Yeah. So I'm enjoying my 10-year-olds. But yeah,
It's
I
a
do.
good
I want to make
age.
a difference and I want to do the right thing and still be able to come home and balance, being a good mom and, you know, and just the seasons of change with, teenagers and also aging parents. My parents live nearby and I'm blessed that they're both still with me, but you know, they're both 80. My mom and dad just turned 80 this year. And so,
How did we get
seeing
to have parents that old?
yeah, but seeing that physical change in them, and I know that they need a little more help, and so I want to be there for them and I want to, you know, be able to make as many memories as I can with the people that I love
Yes.
while I'm here. And teaching allows me that joy
Mhm.
because, I do have, like today, I'm off of school. And so I was able to spend the morning with my girls and we've done some spring cleaning and our house looks great and, had lunch together. And so it's nice, to have
Mhm.
a career where my family can stay my top priority.
I love
And
that.
I'm really thankful for that.
Yes. And
Now I
you
need to get
are.
down to visit my friend.
Yes, I know. I was just gonna say you're a great friend. You're always there when, somebody needs you. I know that because you were there for you hosted my baby shower for triplets when I found out I was gonna have triplets. You were I mean, going back through history, you were at my bachelorette party making sure everybody was having fun. I mean, you have been there in those big moments in my life and now you're here on the podcast. So it's exciting to see
It's
that.
another big moment.
I know.
I know it is. It's exciting.
It is. It is. So yeah, we have to get together here soon and celebrate another milestone,
What
whatever
will
that
the next one
is.
be?
I know. Absolutely. So when are you doing your next happiness summit?
I don't have anything on the schedule right now. So I just was in Miami a couple weeks ago doing cohorts 2 and 3. And we've got a few virtual sessions coming up, which again is great because I don't have to leave home for those. So we're going to do some virtual sessions with them. And then, yeah, just, I'll go where I'm needed and continue to try to learn myself and train myself because it's something that we all have to work at. And I think, that vulnerability is important to share with people. But hopefully, we can get every school district in the country to want this, to invest in their school leaders and well being and happiness. So, yeah.
I love that. Well, thank you. Thank you for being here and
Yeah,
joining
it was
us
so
today.
fun.
I'm going to
Yeah,
make sure
absolutely.
all your contact information's in the show notes. So if anybody wants to reach out about having you come visit their school system or their
Absolutely.
place, because everybody can use a little shot of happiness, right?
Yeah. Yep. It's good stuff. Good stuff. It's important.
Well, that's it for the Go Slow to Go Fast Lifestyle Podcast, episode 1 of season 2. I'm so excited that you've decided to stay this long and maybe something has resonated with you and you're going to come back for more. So please check out my website, www.coachingwithkendrachapman.com, if you want to know more or catch up on the rest of the episodes from season 1. I had 40. I figured I turned 50 this year. This is my 50th episode, but I wanted to start off the new year talking about happiness and what that truly does mean and what it may or may not mean to you, to me, and to everybody listening, but just to be thinking about how to get to that place of maybe more contentment rather than happiness all the time. Because if we're happy all the time, then we don't appreciate the moments where we can find that peace and gratitude, because it's just going to be the same. There's no up and down. So we need to have those moments of sadness and sorrow and loss to experience the amazing love and what else life has to offer us. So I hope that you'll join me in the coming year for the rest of my episodes in season 2, and give me some feedback. Let me know what else you want to hear about, what you want me to talk about, what you'd love to know more about. If you'd love to have certain types of guests on the podcast, let me know, because I do want to make sure that I'm listening to my listeners out there and, giving you a show that you want to hear and not just my, interests along the way. So take care, and remember, the light in me honors the light in you. And as you head into the rest of your week, let your light shine through. And don't forget, go slow to go fast. Bye.